when we had done part of chapter 3 yesterday in Animal Farm, and we'd seen how the pigs are becoming very intelligent, studying blacksmithing and carpentering and making all those committees, and the cat trying to get friendly with the sparrows, saying that we are all equal. And the reading and writing classes had been so successful that almost all the animals were literate. So I'm reading from the last paragraph on this page 42. As for the pigs, they could already read and write perfectly. The dogs learned to read fairly well, but were not interested in reading anything except the 7 commandments. Muriel the goat could read somewhat better than the dogs, and sometimes used to read to the others in the evenings from scraps of newspaper which she found on the rubbish heap. Wow! So even the goat is reading the newspaper. Benjamin could read as well as any pig, but never exercised his faculty. His faculty is ability. So far as he knew, he said there was nothing worth reading. Clover learned the whole alphabet, but could not put words together. Boxer could not get beyond the letter D, so he would trace out A, B, C, D in the dust with his great hoof and then stand staring at the letters with his ears back, sometimes shaking his forelock, the hair on his mane, shaking his forelock, trying with all his might to remember what came next and never succeeding. Now the whole paragraph is on this theme, and you see how intelligently George Orwell has given you the reading abilities of all the animals. Pigs are perfect, dogs are quite good, Muriel the goat is better, she can read the newspaper, Benjamin is super, but he doesn't like to read, there's nothing worth reading, he says. Clover has learnt A to Z, but Boxer can't go beyond D. On several occasions, indeed, he did learn E, F, G, H, but by the time he knew them, it was always discovered that he had forgotten A, B, C, D, and finally he decided to be content with the first 4 letters and used to write them out once or twice every day to refresh his memory. Now, we have a lot of people in our country who can only sign their names. They've practiced and practiced and practiced, whether it's Kiran or Raju or Kamal or whatever the name may be. They have learned their name and then they practice it. And that they are very happy. Arey hum sign karat le the na, bahut hai. And they are happy with that. So Boxer, as I told you, he is used or presented as a symbol of the labor class. So they are so tired, they're working so hard, and they can't see any point in what they're doing, and so they don't want to read and learn. And I hope none of you are going to be like that. Molly refused to learn any of the 6 letters which spelled her own name. She would form these very neatly out of pieces of twig and decorate them with a flower or two and walk round them admiringly. She's the one who loved ribbons. She's the one who loved sugar. Now when she learned to write, she only learned the name Molly. And then she would write the name Molly and put flowers and twigs around it and watch it. None of the other animals on the farm could get further than the letter A. It was also found that the stupider animals, such as the sheep, hens and ducks, were unable to learn the 7 commandments by heart. After much thought, Snowball declared that the 7 commandments could in effect be reduced to a single maxim. Now the word maxim means a proverb. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. So he says, okay, if you can't learn all the 7 things that animals should do this and that and the other, then just learn one thing. 4 legs good and 2 legs bad. So 4 legs, all the animals are 4 legs. This, he said, contained the essential principle of animalism. Whoever had thoroughly grasped it, grasp is understand. It would be safe from human influences. The birds at first objected, since it seemed to them that they also had 2 legs. But Snowball proved to them that it was not so. The birds were saying, oh, we have 2 legs, now you're saying we are bad. A bird's wing, comrade, he said, is an organ of propulsion it takes you further, not of manipulation. Like the hands that we have, four legs good and two is bad, because we have four limbs, two hands and two legs, but with our hands we can kill, we can wield a sword, we can fire a gun. There's so many things that we can do with our hands that are good and that are also bad and dangerous. So he says it should therefore be regarded as a leg. The distinguishing mark of man is the hand, the instrument with which he does all his mischief. A bit of a sad line, God has given us hands to eat, to wash, to bathe, to hold, to carry a child, to love, to support, and if we use it to kill and cheat and beat and whip and steal, that's very sad. The birds did not understand Snowball's long words, but they accepted his explanation, and all the humbler animals set to work to learn the new maxim by heart: 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. This was inscribed on the end wall of the barn above the 7 commandments and in bigger letters. When they had once got it by heart, the sheep developed a great liking for this maxim, and often as they lay in the field, they would all start bleating, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and keep it up for hours on end, never growing tired of it. Now, that's another feature of an illiterate class. If we do not learn, then whatever is, once we have understood it, like, when people are in trouble, when people are poor, when people are miserable, they often think it is the fate, it is our destiny, it is our kismat, it is our karma. They just think it, and then they say, oh, it is all Ishwar ki Leela. I'm not saying it is wrong or right. I'm just saying that when they accept it like that, they don't improve themselves, they don't improve the lives of others. That is dangerous. So when we are literate, then we think, okay, if this is failing, now a lot of people who had shops, who sold, cloth, or who sold vessels, now they're selling vegetables, now they're, selling food. That is why people have to always buy vegetables, people have to always eat food. So new businesses have cropped up during Corona times that did not exist before this. Napoleon took no interest in Snowball's committees. He said that the education of the young was more important than anything that could be done for those who were already grown up. Very important. It happened that Jessie and Bluebell had both whelped. W-H-E-L-P-D. Whelp means had given birth, And soon after the hay harvest, giving birth between them to 9 sturdy puppies. Sturdy is strong. Like you have a good chair, plastic chair is not sturdy, you can't jump on it. But a good wooden chair, if it is well made, it is sturdy, strong. As soon as they were weaned, that is, they stopped drinking their mother's milk, Napoleon took them away from their mothers, saying that he would make himself responsible for their education. He took them up into a loft which could only be reached by a ladder from the harness room, and kept them there in such seclusion that the rest of the farm soon forgot their existence. Wow! Very important point. You put a double tick there and remember that. So when Jessie and Bluebell had their puppies, he took them and hid them, kept them somewhere because he wanted to educate them. And he kept them in such a place that, and he only looked after them, that no one remembered that these puppies were ever born. The mystery of where the milk went to was soon clear. At the end of chapter 2, we had those 5 buckets of milk, and we didn't know what happened to them. It was mixed every day into the pig's mash. The early apples were now ripening, and the grass of the orchard was littered with windfalls. Now, windfalls is when the wind blew and the apple fell, it was called a windfall. Now, today, you might find it as a lottery or something that fell from somewhere. Oh, he got a windfall, some money he got suddenly. But for children, who couldn't climb the trees to break apples, an apple was a windfall. They'll keep chewing it for some time. The animals had assumed, as a matter of course, that these would be shared out equally. All animals were equal. One day, however, the order went forth that all the windfalls were to be collected and brought to the harness room for the use of the pigs. At this, some of the other animals murmured. But it was of no use. All the pigs were in full agreement on this point. Even Snowball and Napoleon. Squealer. We met him once. He could turn black into white. Squealer was sent to make the necessary explanations to the others. Now, by apple is fruit. You find all kinds of creatures eating fruit. An apple is quite a big, nourishing fruit. So all the animals thought that, this is our trees, this is our farm, so we'll all get the apples. But it was decided that all the apples will go for the pigs. Why? Why the pigs? Why not us? So even Snowball and Napoleon, who used to argue with each other and everything, they also agreed that all the apples that fell would go to the pigs. The Squealer came. Comrades, he cried, you do not imagine, I hope, that we pigs are doing this in a spirit of selfishness and privilege. That is what they were doing. But why will they admit it? So he says, we are not doing this because we want to have apples. Many of us dislike milk and apples. I dislike them myself. Our sole object in taking these things is to preserve our health. Milk and apples, this has been proved by science, comrades, contain substances absolutely necessary for the well-being of a pig. Good health, only the pig must have. And apples and milk are nourishing, and so only the pig must have them. We pigs are brain workers. The whole management and organization of this farm depend on us. Day and night we are watching over your welfare. It is for your sake that we drink that milk and eat those apples. Do you know what would happen if we pigs failed in our duty? Jones would come back. Yes, Jones would come back. Surely, comrades, cried Squealer, almost pleadingly, skipping from side to side and whisking his tail. Surely, there is no one among you who wants to see Jones back. Now Jones had been hitting and killing and starving the animals. They had bad memories of him. It was hardly a few months that he had gone. So they thought, maybe the pigs are doing everything for us, so let them eat. Now if there was one thing that the animals were completely certain of, it was that they did not want Jones back. When it was put to them in this light, they had no more to say. The importance of keeping the pigs in good health was all too obvious. If the pigs were guarding the farm, then the pigs must be kept in good health. So it was agreed, without further argument, that the milk and the windfall apples, and also the main crop of apples, when they ripened, should be reserved for the pigs alone. So, 2 bits of selfishness, apart from the fact that the pigs did not do any work and they only went supervising and giving orders. All the milk, all the apples, no work, supervising and ordering. So these now are 5 things that the pigs are doing apart while being in an animal farm where all animals are equal. Now I'm going on to chapter 4 and I'll do a little bit over here. By the late summer, the news of what had happened on Animal Farm had spread across half the country. Every day Snowball and Napoleon sent out flights of pigeons whose instructions were to mingle with the animals on the neighboring farms, tell them the story of the rebellion, and teach them the tune of Beasts of England. Now, rebellion always fosters more rebellion. So, Snowball and Napoleon would trail the pigeons in the song of Beasts of England. And so when birds come, How does anyone know these are my pigeons or your pigeons? So he says, go to all the farms and tell the animals that this is what has happened and this is what they can do. Most of this time, Mr. Jones had spent sitting in the tap room of the Red Lion at Willingdon, complaining to anyone who would listen to the monstrous injustice he had suffered in being turned out of his property by a pack of good-for-nothing animals. Tap room, again, often beer was kept in barrels and apple cider, and so they would open a tap to take it out. So that is called the tap room for where liquor was stored. So he used to sit down in that Willingdon pub, अरे यार क्या बताएं, and he would say, just imagine all my sheep and my cows and my horses. They attacked me and they threw me out. Talking makes you thirsty. The other farmers sympathized in principle, but they did not at first give him much help. At heart, each of them was secretly wondering whether he could not somehow turn Jones' misfortune to his own advantage. Well, there's one land, one property. Imagine there's a big house in your neighborhood and only dogs are living there. So you'll think, yeah, nobody's living, I can take this house for myself. At least now there are all these laws of registry and all. 100, 200, 300 years ago, you could have just taken it and said, "Ye mera ghar hai. No one is living here," and there would be no takers for it. It was lucky that the owners of the two farms which adjoined Animal Farm. Adjoined is joined on the side. Adjacent is also side by side. So on both sides of Animal Farm, there were two farms. We'll listen to the farms' names and their owners' names just now. So these two farms, the owners did not like each other, were permanently on bad terms. One of them, which was named Foxfoot, was a large, neglected, old-fashioned farm, much overgrown by woodland, with all its pastures worn out and its hedges in a disgraceful condition. Its owner, Mr. Pilkington, was an easy-going gentleman farmer who spent most of his time in fishing or hunting according to the season. So there were two farms. One farm's name was Foxfoot. It was a jungly farm. Overrun. There was no food growing on it. No animals kept on it. Because the owner just enjoyed hunting and fishing and he didn't take much care of the farm. So Pilkington, P is the name of the owner, Pilkington, and the name of the farm is Foxfoot. The other farm, which was called Pinchfield, was smaller, better kept. Its owner was a Mr. Frederick, a tough, shrewd man, perpetually involved in lawsuits and with a name for driving hard bargains. So the first farm was Foxfoot and the owner was Pilkington. The second farm was Pinchfield, P for the farm's name, and Frederick. So there was a PF and a FP, FP, Foxfoot and Pilkington, the owner, Pinchfield farm, and Frederick, Mr. Frederick, the owner. And Mr. Frederick was a very cunning man. He used to often go to court, drive a hard bargain, means he wouldn't let you take any profit from him. These two disliked each other so much that it was difficult for them to come to any agreement, even in defense of their own interests. They didn't like each other, so even though this farm, they're both joined together, they might have attacked the animals, made them unconscious and taken the farm and shared it, but no, they could not agree, and so it was good for Animal Farm, they didn't agree. Nevertheless, they were both thoroughly frightened by the rebellion on Animal Farm and were very anxious to prevent their own animals from learning too much about it. At first they pretended to laugh to scorn the idea of animals managing a farm for themselves. The whole thing would be over in a fortnight, they said. Then how can animals run a farm? What will they do? They can't use equipment, they can't sow corn. they put it about that the animals on the manor farm, they insisted on calling it the manor farm. They would not tolerate the name animal farm. Were perpetually is forever, always, continually, fighting among themselves, and were also rapidly starving to death. When time passed and the animals had evidently not starved to death, Frederick and Pilkington changed their tune and began to talk of the terrible wickedness that now flourished on Animal Farm. It was given out that the animals practiced cannibalism. Now, among the humans, there are some tribes in some parts of the world where they do not consider humans, as very special. So the stronger humans kill the weaker humans and eat them. So cannibals are men who eat other humans. So he says there was cannibalism on the farm, that is, animals were eating their own kind, tortured one another with red hot horseshoes, and had their females in common. That was a strange thing. This is what came of rebelling against the laws of nature, Frederick and Pilkington said. So, they passed a lot of lies about the farm, hoping that their animals and the neighbors would not be interested in Animal Farm. However, these stories were never fully believed. Rumors of a wonderful farm where humans had been turned out and the animals managed their own affairs continued to circulate in vague and distorted forms, and throughout that year, a wave of rebelliousness ran through the countryside. But these pigeons were flying from farm to farm, and so all the animals were hearing, okay, there's no whipping and no hitting, animals get out and do their own work. And so they were, restless. Why should we get hit? They are living so peacefully without any masters. Bulls, which had always been tractable. Now, you have this word tractor. You see the tractor pulls. No? So, tractable is, pullable, biddable, doable, someone who listens. So, bulls that had always been tractable suddenly turned savage. Sheep broke down the hedges, devoured the clover. Cows kicked the pail over, the milk pail. Hunters refused their fences. Hunters are horses. And shot their riders onto the other side. Above all, the tune and even the words of beasts of England were known everywhere. It had spread with astonishing speed. The human beings could not contain their rage, so angry, because the song talks about a time when there will be no humans. When they heard this song, though they pretended to think it merely ridiculous, silly, foolish, they could not understand, they said, how even animals could bring themselves to sing such contemptible rubbish. Any animal caught singing it was given a flogging on the spot. Flogging, whipping. And yet the song was irrepressible. You couldn't control it. Whether they got whipped or not, they were singing it. The blackbirds whistled it in the hedges. The pigeons cooed it in the elms. It got into the din of the smithies and the church bells. Smithies are where the blacksmith would be beating the iron. So he would also be beating the iron according to the tune of the Beast of England. The bells were ringing it, and when the human beings listened to it, they secretly trembled, hearing in it a prophecy of their future doom. The song, was about a time when humans would not be there. Hearken to my joyful tidings of the golden future time. Soon or late the day is coming, tyrant man shall be overthrown, and the fruitful fields of England shall be trod by beasts alone. My God, if all the animals are going to destroy the humans, what will happen to them? So they were very worried and frightened. And now I think I've taken a lot of your time, and we'll continue chapter 4. Please make a mark over here. We'll continue chapter 4 on our next turn, next week. And so all the best to you, and keep reading and revising. Okay.